Hello everyone, so welcome back to my channel. Today we'll discuss an interesting poem, Soft Storm by Abhi Subedi. So before I start my class, my as usual request is if you are new to this channel and if you have not subscribed my channel yet, please do not forget to subscribe the channel and hit that bell icon because your one subscription gives me a lot of motivation. So please promote the teacher like me. So now without wasting our time, let's start our discussion of this poem. So the poem starts like this. I became soft after I heard the tumult and crashed on the airy stillness. So the speaker of this poem, he is basically describing the situation of being helplessness, the situation of being very senile, the situation of being very soft, the situation of being very calm. Even the speaker says that he hears the tumult and the crashes and the environment is very uncanny, the environment is very dangerous, the environment is very horrible, but still he becomes soft. So from these lines of this poem, basically we try to guess a kind of revolt, a kind of revolution that gets born inside us, a kind of change that we want, but our effort does not make that. So sometimes what happens is that we observe our surrounding and we observe the chaos in our environment, in our society, and we observe and we realize that the chaos, the environment of our society is not good or not as per our expectation, and we want change, but at the meantime because our single effort cannot change that, or we cannot become able, or we don't become able to change that kind of unwanted environment, unwanted society, or unwanted socio-political scenario. So what we become is we become intellectual rebel, or we become soft. Sometimes we try to, or we try to accept everything. Sometimes we accept and then we just seek the change internally. We cannot do anything. Sometimes if you are so educated, you don't want to see the change, isn't it? Or you, if you, even if you want to see the change, so you cannot do that. So moving ahead, I inherited the soft when the sky grew like crocuses over the stones and became 5 inches taller. That very night when moon skidded down your walls, speaking in the language of posters and politics, rituals and regions. Further, the speaker of this poem says, I inherited the soft when the sky grew like crocuses. Crocuses is a kind of flower you can see here that grows so on stones. I inherited the soft. So the speaker is saying that basically he became senile, he became soft, he started to accept everything. When the sky grew like crocuses, okay, sky grew like crocuses means when there were voices of rebel, when there were voices of protest, when there were voices of resistance over the stones and became 5 inches taller that very night. Here the speaker might be addressing or referring to something, the violent smoke, okay, when moon skidded down your walls, speaking in the language of posters and politics, rituals and regions. Now, so what happens, the speaker might be so trying to say that during the night time of Maoist insurgency, people used to so politicize, or people used to advertise their politics. They used to come and they used to so stage, or they used to paste the posters, all political posters all over the walls of the city or the streets. So the speaker might be saying that the speaker might be saying that the language of that politics, the language of that resistance, the language of that protest was a ritual, and there were reasons behind them. Whoever were making those kind of political posters, whoever were writing those kind of political slogans on the walls of streets, there might have been the reasons, and that was the ritual of politics. Okay, moving forward, I became soft as the softness rose like a gale, tearing my roofs that very night. Okay, so how the wind, gale means your wind, how the wind or storm rises. The wind or storm rises from very small so amount to a very destructive level. I became soft as the softness rose like a gale, tearing my roofs that very night when the moon sang of lampposts and gutters. Here the speaker might be referring to those kind of attacks during Maoist time. During Maoist insurgency, not only from the guerrilla side and not only from the state army, from both parties, state army and from Maoist guerrillas, who were affected. Of course, civilians were affected, and their houses, their buildings, they were destroyed by the bomb explosion. They were destroyed in the clashes between two parties. So the speaker might be saying that he became shocked when he saw the storm, or when he saw the violence, when he saw the war destroying the roofs or destroying the buildings of a people. That very night, when the moon sang up lampposts and gutters in this seamless city. Okay, so now look here. The speaker is saying that he saw that night when the moon sang of lampposts and gutters. Okay, so now look at here. The speaker might be referring to the gutters, or the canal, or that lamppost where so we could see the poverty, or where we could notice the poverty, or where we could see actually the real face of our city. If we talk about the real face of our city, then we see under these lampposts and near the gutters how poor people they manage to live, how poor people conduct their business, and how these places, lampposts and gutters, and on that gutters, especially the poor people, they come and they make different kind of businesses. So in this seamless city, okay, so the author here, or the poet here, or the speaker of this poem might be saying that the city should have some different opinions. Whenever the country or the state suffers from socio-political crisis, the city should have different opinion. But the problem is our society is seamless. Seamless means there are no different opinions. Okay, so everyone has a kind of similar opinion. No one has that voice of rebel. No one has that voice of revolt. Everyone seems to behave in a very usual way. Everyone seems to behave in a very linear way or a single way. So people should have a kind of difference in their opinion. If they have difference in their opinion, they would rather be able to oppose whatever society should not have. They would rather be able to oppose, and they would rather be able to raise the voice against corruption and against the reasons of political backwardness, against the reason of political corruption. Okay, so moving ahead, the speaker says that I became shocked when homeless children in Tamil cried with hunger under the bad bearing trees of Kesar Mahal. So here the speaker is saying that he became helpless. Even if you want to change the scenario, even if you wish that the situation would be different, even if you wish that the situation and the environment and socio-political scenario of your society would be different, sometimes you become helpless, because wanting that, you even being individual cannot do anything, and you become soft. You see that kind of unwanted scenes, incidents in your society, but you just accept the reality. You cannot change yourself at once. You don't wish, nobody wishes others to be poor, nobody wishes poor to live in this society. Everyone wishes that everyone would have better home, better life, and better future. But of course the society is, the world is not as we think. Of course some people are poor, some people are sick, some people are under poverty, and they are suffering from hunger. So the speaker becomes very kind of senile. Internally he is okay, frustrated to see this. He became soft, he became very emotional, and he so cannot do anything physically. He just keeps on looking, observing those things. I became shocked when homeless children in Tamil cried with hunger. Look at here. Here, so the speaker brings reference of Tamil and cried with hunger. So the speaker is trying to say that the Tamil is very busy street. The Tamil is very colorful place of Nepal, where you see people go. And why people go to Tamil? In many times we have very a kind of stereotypical perception about Tamil, because we know that many women and the girls they go there. And why they go there, why they make the noise, they dance, and then they allure or attract foreign tourists or local tourists, because they want to earn the money. And if we talk about prostitution, if we talk about other things, why women and girls are involved in such prostitutions in those areas? Because of course they want money, they don't have jobs. Here simply the children who cry with hunger are not children who simply cry because they don't have food. Here it refers to everyone who visits that place and who, in expectation of some money offered by some tourist, go there and they have to suffer or they bear the unwanted consequences, or they bear or they perform the things that they don't basically like to do. Under the bad bearing trees of Kesar Mahal. Okay. I became soft when I returned from Meli, where ceremony dances with mad steps on the unwedded gardens of history, growing around protruded rocks. So the speaker further says that whenever he returns from the riot, violence, classes, where people dances with mad steps. Actually, when someone dance, then they dance with very synchronized steps, the steps that make one observer feel very relaxed and calm. But dancing with mad steps means rushing here and there, running here and there. When classes, violence, they appear, then people dance. Dance means they move, but their movements are not synchronized, their movements are not peaceful, their movements are not very progressive, their movements are not movements of a very calm person, their movements are not movements of very peaceful time. People rush, run here and there, they run for their lives. So that kind of dances are the dances with mad steps on the unwedded gardens of history, so growing around protruded rocks. Now look at here, the unwedded gardens of history here refers to those history which were not written, those history which were missed out, growing around protruded rocks. Protruded rocks means here those rocks, okay, those hilly areas where violences, clashes went during Maoist insurgency or during any time of past Nepal, but they were not recorded. Their histories were not written. Why they were okay, why they occurred, why they took place. The real reason to know why insurgency was there, why violence was there, why class war was there, why civil war was there in Nepal was never analyzed from very, okay, let's say, objective perspective. So further the speaker says, I became soft when I alone turned to you, leaving deep dents of words on these white sheets. I became soft storm when I saw a forlorn child carrying transistor radio around his neck, run around wailing to find his mother in the corridors of violent history. The speaker very beautifully here says, I became soft means he becomes soft when he turns to us, leaving deep dents of words on these white sheets. So when he so writes poem, then he turns to us. Basically, he wants us to listen him. He says that turning to us means he now gives us his poem or writing to read about his feelings to us. Leaving deep dents of words means he has come up with some very violent words, some words that are very hard to digest, some words that are very violent, cruel, brutal to hear. And these white sheets means white paper. So okay, I became soft when I saw a forlorn child carrying transistor radio around his neck. Look at here again, the speaker in this poem is trying to give us some scenario or trying to create images of those Maoist insurgency period when the youths or when the teenage children, they were forced to go into war. So those Maoists, they used to come to village, rural area, the hilly area, and then they used to ask, and sometimes they used to motivate, and other time they used to force those innocent children to get involved in the war, in that kind of thing where they didn't have any experience. Run around wailing to find his mother in the corridors of violent history. To find his mother, look at here. To find his mother here might be referring to a country. The youths, isn't it? They involved in the war. The youths, the children, they involved in the war in the name of country, in the name of their motherland, in name of making their motherland a proud state, a beautiful, a progressive state. in the corridors of violent history. But of course, that time of history was violent. Of course, that time of history was very brutal. So moving forward, the speaker again says, I became a soft stone when I saw a man beaten mercilessly for no reason before his family, by nobody for no reason in no sensible times. Look at here. So again the speaker is giving us images of those Maoist insurgency, or a scene where a man gets beaten without any reason, without any proper reason. If a person during Maoist insurgency was beaten since he belonged to some high class family, but that's not the reason to beat, to kill, to persecute somebody if somebody belongs to high class family. That's not the complete reason. Okay, so because if you go for the revenge simply because some another one has more wealth than you, and if you become jealous and if you always do bad things to him, then that's not the reason to be jealous. Okay, so the speaker says he becomes very senile, he becomes very soft, and he becomes again helpless when he sees a man beaten mercilessly for no reason before his family, by nobody for no reason in no sensible time. There were no concrete reasons, and they were no nobodies. They were nobodies means they were not any, okay, authority. They were not any so assigned person. They didn't have any power. Simply they were the rebels. They were those protesters, and that was the war of civil, the time of civil war. The period of civil war was not a sensible time. It was very insensible time, because the saints, it had no any job during that time. During war, no, nothing makes sense. Okay, so moving forward, the speaker says, I became soft when I saw a blood stained sword speaking in the earth's ears with bruised human lips in the far corner under the moon of history, and dream playing hide and seek in open museums of human times. So the speaker further says, he becomes soft when he sees a blood stained sword speaking in the earth's ears. Earth's ears means the body, the dead body that has lied, or that wounded body that has lied, or that is on the ground and crying with agony, with bruised human lips in the far corner under the moon of history, and dreams playing hide and seek in open museums of human times. Okay, so here the speaker is trying that during night, when he sees a person suffering from war, a person suffering from bullet shot, a person suffering from class, then he sees how that agonyful crying so reminds him about the history, reminds him about that war, reminds him about the helplessness of people. Okay, reminds him how human times are open museums. You don't need to go to any artificial museum, man-made museum. No, you don't need to go there. If you want to see the very rarest thing, then you just need to be in war. If you go to war, you see how unseen things can be seen during the war, how unexpected things can be seen during the war, and how war presents you a kind of very open museum where you see everything happening at the same time without any restriction, and where you don't need to buy the ticket and enter. You see what kind of mysterious attitudes, what kind of mysterious habits, and what kind of mysterious uh, behaviors, or what kind of mysterious psychology people have inside them. Okay, so moving ahead. Further, the speaker says, I became soft since you gave words but did not listen to them, gave storms but didn't wait to see its Leela over the silent stone. So the speaker is saying that he becomes soft since that somebody has given them words. And now look at here, he did not listen to them. So gave stones, but didn't wait to see its lila over the silent stone. Basically, the speaker is trying to say that he became soft because somebody, those people who asked others to fight for the justice, to fight for the cause, and to fight for their rights, They have given them words that you will be freed, you will have rights, you will get a kind of human rights, you will get your political rights, you will get your social rights. During Maoist insurgency also, they were promised, those political leaders who involved common innocent people, very uneducated people into war, they had promised them that their future will be bright, they will be given rights, human rights. So like there were different ethnic people, then there were Dalit people, there were women, there were poor people, there were landless people. Everyone was promised. But what happened? But as soon as the war ended, and then agreement was made between government and that fighting party or that guerrilla party or that party whoever was in the war, then so did they listen? So did they fulfill their promises? Of course not. Those Dalits, ethnic peoples, women's, poor peoples, landless people, their rights, their wishes, their demands were not fulfilled. Even those leaders, they completely forgot their promises and their so uh, strategies, but didn't wait to see its Leela over the silent stone. Now, what happened? Then poverty arose. Then again, when those kind of people's dreams, future wishes was not fulfilled, when they were not fulfilled, then the poverty started. Then people have started to have a kind of frustration. So here Leela refers to a kind of strange dance where you see something very uncanny, something very airy, something very horrible when something starts getting okay bad, so when something starts getting changed. Further, the speaker says, Crocuses have grown over the stone. I have already said that crocuses are the flowers. I saw last moonlit night storms have loitered in the narrow lanes where I too have walked alone. Storm here basically refers that kind of feeling of frustration, feeling where of deception, feeling of despair. So there are storms in everyone, in every nook and corner, but that storm still has to get a kind of destructive shape. Similarly, the speaker of this poem also has that kind of storm, but his storm is soft. That storm has not changed still into a destructive force. Whenever the speaker is saying he walks alone, he can feel that kind of frustration. He can feel that kind of dissatisfaction among people. So moving ahead, then he says that pensively in rain tears and little chuckles of sun laughter that have risen and melted like rainbow. Soft is my storm that rages and rages over silent pages. So soft storm. Why this is soft storm? Because the poet is expressing his thoughts through the writing, through literature, not through violent swords and guns and weapons. So the speaker is saying, pensively in rain, tears, and little chuckles of sun laughter that have risen and melted like rainbow. So what happened? The war started, the violence started with the tears. And of course, when the violence ended, agreement was made. It was a moment of happiness. It was a moment of hope. But that did not come to be true. So it arose and it rose and again it melted like rainbow. What does rainbow signify? Rainbow signifies temporariness. So that happiness was temporary, the hope was temporary. People's expectations, their desires that their lives, country, society, socio-political scenario will change. That kind of expectation, hope was temporary. Like a rainbow disappears after some time. It never stays permanently. After few seconds and minutes, rainbow disappears. For some moment, it looks so beautiful, but it does not last for ever and ever. Silent stones, silent forlorn swords carrying war memories, silent dilapidations of God's abodes, where dances and songs are buried under the helpless divine debris in human courtyards. So what happened? So during the war, during civil war, so even those kind of spiritual things, even those kind of gods, they were demolished. Even gods were shown to have some kind of weaknesses. Certain religious sentiments were hurt. So the speaker might be so trying to say that the kind of war, that kind of violence was affected by a kind of foreign agency, a kind of foreign notions where our own religion, isn't it? If we have to talk about Nepal, the religion of Nepal is Hinduism, isn't it? Hindu sentiments or Hinduism's sentiments, they were affected because basically they were challenged by Western religious sentiments. They were challenged by showing false in God, by showing that the God of Hindu people, they are discriminatory. So many people, they change the jobs also, especially those community who supposed or who thought that or who found themselves to be discriminated, they change. And of course they know that Christianity also rose in Nepal. So, and then that was a kind of destruction to our, let's say, our tradition culture, and that was a kind of invasion of our culture tradition by foreign culture, by foreign sentiments, by Western sentiments. So the speaker says, silent dilapidations of gods' abodes where dances and songs are buried under helpless divine debris in human courtyards. So moving forward, the speaker says, soft is what you saw. I honor your moon eyes, but the mad time spools, winding all that we see and live with. Stone growing in flower, moon humming melodies, history rushing under the lamppost and over deforested land. Here, look at here. Soft is what you saw, I honor your moon eyes, but the mad time is full swinding all that we see and live with. Here he said that now whatever we see, we can see that I am soft, or you can see that the speaker is saying that I am soft, but the times were mad. During violence, during civil war, times were mad. And that mad times, that mixed everything together. Isn't it? That mixed everything together and that created chaos rather than a kind of uniqueness, a kind of different uniqueness. Everything was mixed up and then chaos was born. Stone growing in flower, and that was the time the speaker says stone grew in a flower. Here the speaker basically might be trying to say that stone growing in flower means even those community, those people who were supposed to be very innocent, who were supposed to be very silent, calm, peace loving people also, they begot, isn't it? They begot a kind of revolution, protest and resistance among them. Against what? Against the kind of very suppressive regime. So it was not suppressive regime, but the party that motivated those kind of community people to fight for their causes, rights and justice. That party's motivation actually that changed those community into a kind of hard, rigid person. So the speaker might be trying to say that stone growing in flower. Flower here represents very calm, peace, beauty, and stone represents rigidness. Moon humming melodies, history rushing under the lamppost and over deforested land. Isn't it? Now, similarly, again, the speaker comes back to city description. He says that now history is written under the lamppost. Okay, under the lamppost, if you visit city area, you see how what is the real or actual history. Real or actual history is that history where you see people negotiating for prostitution, where you see people negotiating to sell their bodies and to sell their dignity for some amount of money. And that kind of history can only be seen under the lamppost of city and over deforested land. So this city, this town area is deforested land, and these all they got born from a kind of war, a kind of frustration that one does not get when full promises were already fulfilled to that person. Birds singing of bizarre journeys over the warming earth, rhododendron blooming in winter, Mother Earth telling of the tumults in the songs of sad birds, all in unison have created this soft gale. So now look at here. The speaker is saying that birds singing of bizarre journeys. The journey, as soon as who were birds? The people who fought in the war. They could be birds, and if we listen their journeys, if we listen their contribution, or if we listen their adventures, or if we listen their history or past, how they were involved in the war, we will listen different bizarre histories over the warming earth. Rhododendron blooming in winter. Now look at here. Time is changing. Rhododendron blooming in winter. Basically, rhododendron, isn't it? They don't bloom in winter. But now here says the time has changed. Everything that should not happen in some specific time is happening against our expectation. Mother Earth telling of tumults in the songs of sad birds. Mother Earth telling of tumults in the songs of sad birds, all in unison have created this soft gale. So now this age of modernity is a kind of bizarre age where you cannot expect every time good things to happen to you, where you cannot expect every time the things that are supposed to happen by the routine time to happen to you. Now unexpectedly, it's not absurd things or events they occur, and they have created everything is going on together, it's not. Okay, so this is a very kind of problematic thing. No one is actually worried about humanity. So moving forward, the speaker says, but in these hard times, I want to melt like a rainbow. My soft storm in your minuscule sky. My soft storm dances in ripples of your uneasy lake. So the speaker is basically trying to say that now he wants to be absorbed, he wants to get plunged into a kind of meditative state, into a kind of calm state, into a kind of state of meditation where he won't have to face a different kind of chaos that has so begotten in society, that has so born in society. So he does not want to experience any kind of chaos, violence, brutality in society. He wants to live in a very calm, meditative environment. So this is it, dear learners. I hope you like that video, and if you please like this video, do not forget to subscribe the channel and share this video series among your friends. Hope so we'll meet soon, and have a good day up to that.